No.
Okay.
We are on.
Welcome, everybody. This is Brian Terrian here from the Disability Digest. Thanks for joining or listening or watching the replay of our live event today. Today, we have a special event. We have what I would consider the industry expert with us to help you understand or get questions answered about how to get your benefits, how to keep your benefits. And that's attorney James Mitchell Brown is back with us. Thanks for joining, Jim.
Glad to be here, Brian.
Yes. For those of you that are out there and don't know Jim, I call him the industry expert because he's been here quite a few times, and I don't think we've stumped you with a question yet. That's one reason. But you've been doing this work since 1973, helping people get approved, and you work in other areas of disability for helping people even with Medicare fraud, or if they've had a continuing disability review that's gone bad, and you've worked at the government level. So you've been exposed to like all different areas. So thank you for your contribution and thank you for joining.
Glad to be here. It's nice to be able to answer some questions for people today.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what we're going to do today. If you have some questions, our goal is to get them answered for you. We have some questions submitted in advance. We're going to cover those. And we'll take some from Facebook groups and the YouTube queue, but we will have a call-in time where you can call in and ask Attorney Brown any question you like, totally free. Well, not any question. We want to keep it in your area of expertise, right?
Right. Let's stick to Social Security.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll have that opportunity as well. In a few minutes, I'll put the phone number up that you can call in on. So to get started, though, Jim, you'd mentioned you had something you wanted to share with us today, with a member situation. Not to put
Yes.
you on the spot, but I am.
No, you're not. Thank you for the opportunity. So I just wanted to share for me as a unique story to you guys and possibly get really good advice from Attorney James Brown. So the member's name, we can call him Mike, and he is a 54-year-old supervisor of a juvenile correctional facility in Texas, and he sustained work-related injuries on January of 22, and that led to a concussion and orbital fracture blowout. So the incident was documented, the responsible party is in prison, and despite a fractured orbit that hasn't healed, Mike was forced to return to work, resulting in worsening health and facial deformity. So he has been out of work for a year and a half now and receiving temporary disability, which will cease in the first week of March this year. Workers' comp cut off his medications and conditions have remained debilitating. And additional issues include perforated jaw cartilage, herniated discs, facial asymmetry, depression, anxiety, and trigeminal neuralgia. And he is also in a PhD program, but has struggled post-injury. So in Texas, um, workers' comp, he was told, doesn't provide settlements but issues permanent disability ratings, and you just get checks. So, but note that his workers' comp doctor supports him, but the insurance company doesn't. So he is seeking advice for the future in his current in his current situation. He would also like advice whether he should continue his PhD, as he is worried it could affect his eligibility for SSDI.
Well, that's a handful. First of all, Texas has some of the worst workers' comp laws in the country for the injured worker. So if he gets a monthly check for permanent impairment, it won't be much. Secondly, I'm not sure if Texas prison employees pay into Social Security. Sometimes they just pay into a state retirement.
Mm-hmm.
If he's paying into Social Security, he might be eligible even while he's getting his workers' comp. One of the great misunderstandings, people think you can't get workers' comp and Social Security at the same time. You can. To get workers' comp, you have to prove you can't do the job you were doing when you were injured. To get Social Security, you have to prove there's no jobs you can do, but you can receive both at the same time. If he's struggling to get his PhD, he needs to talk to his advisor, see if they can create an individual education plan at that level. Some colleges will, some won't. If you can show that he is having extraordinary assistance to get that PhD, it shouldn't have any effect on getting disability. Social Security is showing that you can't work for 12 or more months. If he's working on a PhD, it's showing that he plans to go back to work doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that's a good thing to say, I'm trying to get better, I'm doing the best I can. And then getting your disability, and when you're no longer disabled, or he's always going to be disabled, when you're no longer unable to work, when you can work again, then he can stop the disability.
Good advice.
Thank you,
Boy, that
sir.
guy sounds like he had a bad day, man. That's unfortunate.
Yes, and he's struggling to look for an attorney who will help him win his workers' comp and as well as his SSDI.
I
Right.
think there's no workers' comp lawyers in Texas because they've made it so unfair to injured workers.
Yeah.
He told me that he talked to one, sir, but I think he was basically advised on to call back if he doesn't get approved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Good. Good question. Well, we wish him well. For those of you joining us, welcome. You've joined us. We have industry expert James Mitchell Brown, Philip Price, and Jam here with us today. Opportunity for you to get your questions answered is the focus. And we're going to take some questions from chats and call in a minute. But Jim, there's a few questions that have come in that I want to just run by you first. Questions regarding the state of the financial union for Social Security. Like, is it going broke? I mean, what are the benefits going to dry up? What can you share about that?
Well, Social Security isn't going broke. It already is broke. In the early 80s, during the Reagan administration, they changed the law. Social Security was having a huge surplus. And instead of that surplus being kept as a separate fund, it was factored into the federal budget because that surplus made the government's deficit look smaller. They then passed a law saying that the Social Security surplus had to be loaned to the US government at the lowest possible rate. So at a time that money markets were paying 15 to 18%, Social Security was loaning its money to the government at 1.5% and 2%. So the Social Security Trust Fund that people sometimes refer to is really an IOU from the federal government.
Mhm.
That's why some politicians want to reduce Social Security benefits because they call it an entitlement. It's not an entitlement. You paid your taxes for a benefit. There were several benefits you paid for. One was retirement, one was a benefit for your dependents, one's a benefit for disabled children, one is your disability benefit. You paid for that. Now, will they stop payments? Every single person in Congress, House and Senate, has an employee dedicated to Social Security. They get more calls about Social Security than any other single issue. So they're not going to let those checks stop. The people over age 65 are the largest voting bloc in the country. They won't let it stop. That, on a side benefit, protects your disability benefits. Although during the last administration, somebody had the idea that Social Security disability wasn't Social Security, it was welfare. And I should take care of my grandmother and you should take care of yours.
Mm.
And if everybody had $20 million, like the person who said that, we could all do that.
Mm.
They still can't get rid of it. The uproar and the backlash by voters would be so overwhelming. And the one thing everybody in Congress fears is losing their job. So they're going to keep Social Security paying those checks every month as they are. If Social Security were to totally go belly up and have no money to pay, the money coming in would still pay 78% of the money that's going out. So your benefit, at worst case, would be reduced by 20%. They won't let that happen. The government's great at spending money they don't have.
Mhm.
Might as well spend it on Americans.
Mhm. Good. That's helpful to understand. Pivoting a little bit into the approval process, not a little bit, quite a bit actually, is there are members that report here that their doctor says that they're disabled. Maybe it's verbally, maybe it's in writing, maybe it's an RFC or a medical source statement, but they still are having challenges getting approved. I mean, can you explain the disconnect between the doctor's message and the approval process?
Yes, in 1979, they changed the rules on getting disability. Until then, a doctor saying you're disabled was often enough. Now the doctor has to tell why. I was talking to a doctor from the Cleveland Clinic a few years ago who said to me, I don't understand it. I say my patients are disabled and they never get Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just gotten a letter from him. So I knew exactly what he was talking about. And he said, I've been treating this person since 2008, and they became disabled on March 2nd, 2019. He didn't say what he was treating them for. He didn't say what he had done, what worked, what didn't work, why they became disabled that day. And even more important for Social Security payments, what their restrictions are. How much could they lift? How long could they stand, sit, walk, bend, reach, push, pull? Disability is a legal determination, not a medical, unless you're legally blind or paralyzed in at least two limbs. So the fact that this doctor said somebody was disabled was a worthless statement. I've won cases where the doctor has said, my client's not disabled. They can still lift 10 pounds and walk 4 out of 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Those restrictions can prevent some people from doing work.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was my restriction, I would be able to keep doing my job. If I was working in a factory, in a warehouse, I couldn't do my job with those restrictions. So the doctor has to be more explicit instead of just saying you're disabled.
Mm. And that's well said. And I sound like a broken record here, probably for those that listen to me on a frequent basis, is that communicating those limitations is critical, even starting with the patient or the member, communicating them to the doctor, right? So the doctor gets it. They're not always going to make that connection. So good point.
And too many doctors say, well, I can't tell how much you can lift or how long you can stand. So sometimes you have to sit with your doctor and go through those restrictions and say, this is what I can do, put it in your records.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I'm looking around because I know at there it is over there on my other desk. You have a notebook, like a journal that you provide with to the clients that you work with to journal and write things down. And I've learned from you the whole technique of bringing that into the doctor and saying, this is what you're treating me for and what my limitations are. So,
Yep.
yeah, I keep sharing that. Jim, another area of questions are people receive favorable decisions, which is fantastic, but they don't clearly understand what the, say, disabling conditions are, right? It's not clearly written. If they go to a hearing, okay, you have a decision letter that's pretty clear, but at the lower levels, reconsideration or initial, don't know. So, I mean, how do they find out? Or do they find out? Or can they find out?
That's a tough issue. Most people are just happy they got the favorable decision, but that makes it tougher to prepare for the continuing disability review that's going to come a few years later. You can get a copy of your Social Security file. Go into the Social Security office, ask them to give you a copy of the file, including the decision that was written, and they will give it to you. If they gave you disability because of your low back problems and you have other problems, don't think you're going to continue getting disability because of your low back. Mm-hmm. Include all of those other problems in your preparation for a continuing disability review. I had one client who actually had criminal charges brought against him because he got disability when he had 3 back surgeries, was walking with a cane. He was no longer walking with a cane, but said his condition was worse. And they brought charges against him for fraud. He actually had to go through a criminal trial. But in between getting disability and these fraud charges, he'd had a stroke and a heart attack. He just didn't think it was important to tell Social Security because he was still getting medical care for his back, even though it had improved a lot. Mm-hmm. So if you know why they granted disability, don't think that's going to be enough to keep your disability if you have other medical problems.
Okay, good point. Good point. So in a few minutes, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I just want to check, Philip, with your group. You have any questions for Attorney Brown? I think you're muted. Your audio. There we go.
Sorry. No, not right at the moment.
Okay. Jam, how about we take one from you, then we'll open up the phone lines.
Okay. Here's one from Ryan. I got a large back pay SSDI this year that goes back to 2017 to 2023. How can I avoid paying taxes on this whole amount since it was for each year? It didn't work during those years. There's a follow-up. Approved SSDI February 2023 and have a CDR in August 24. Said medical improvement expected, which doctor said no, there isn't. Can I start to work part-time, $900 a month Ubering? Will this make me lose my benefits?
Several questions from the same individual, right?
Yeah.
You're getting the trifecta, Jim.
Yeah, how long did it take him to write that question?
Okay. I don't know.
First of all, on the tax part, you need to see an accountant. If you don't have a spouse who's working, you're not going to be taxed on any of it. If you do have a spouse who's working and above the limit, you need to talk to an accountant to see if there's a way to avoid the taxes. Taxes are not my specialty. Second thing, just because it said do a CDR in August in the decision doesn't mean they will. It's a 50-50 chance. If you're doing Uber driving and doing it and earning less than substantial gainful employment, which this year I believe is about $1,500 a year. I didn't look at the 24 amounts yet. 1,500 a month. You should be okay to do it. My warning is don't get close to that limit each month.
Yeah.
Stay at about 1,200. If you're right up to the limit every month, they're going to say, why couldn't you do more? The other thing is every day you work, go home and write a couple paragraphs about how you feel. I drove for 3 hours. I came home. I had to put my feet in the feet massager or sit in a reclining chair, and I couldn't move for 3 hours after. Make your notes so that when they're reviewing you, they can see that you were pushing yourself to the limits to try and do something. Was there another part to that question, or did I cover it all?
Yes, you did cover it all, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to put up on the screen now the number for those of you that would like to call in, get some free legal advice from the expert here. So it's up on the screen, and I'm going to open up the phone lines here. It's first come, first serve. And please keep your questions in the area of Social Security disability. We might be able to answer other things, but this would give us the highest probability. So the number is 844-202-5609. It's extension 15. Welcome to call us now. Jim, while we're waiting for a caller to call in, housing is a real difficult situation. I mean, maybe this falls into the kind of the tax category when you're living on a fixed income. But when somebody comes to you and they say, yeah, geez, Jim, I'm having a hard time making it work with my $1,350 a month check, like, what advice do you give them?
First of all, if that's rent, rents are going up like crazy in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And some states have rent subsidies for people who are disabled.
Mm-hmm.
If you own your house, some states have tax reductions for people who are disabled. So find that out. As far as how do you make it work otherwise, there's no magic solution for that. That's just a huge problem nationally that the government has to address.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if we're catching anybody in advance or you know people in advance, preparation is the best way to address this. Yeah, so the working and applying, a bit of a double-edged sword. Like some people are like, oh, one moment, we've got somebody calling in here. This is Brian Terrian. Thank you for calling in. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, Brian. My name is Brandon.
Hello, Brandon.
I had a question. I've just filed my...
Could you just, your audio, we can hear you, but Brandon, it's just a little low. If there's a way you could turn your volume up a bit so Attorney Brown and Jam and Philip could hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, is that good, folks?
He's a little quiet, but I think I can hear him.
Okay, let's give it a go.
All right, I filed for my disability in October.
Mm-hmm.
I had two. I had a spinal fusion on my L4, L5. My other pillow popped due to degenerative disc disease, so they had to go in and redo it, and then figured out that I've got spinal stenosis in the center of my back with the herniated disc, and then I also had to have a cervical fusion. I've got feet swelling. I have a hard time walking. I can't walk more than 3 car lengths without having extreme pain to where my back hurts so bad underneath my boobies hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, with this kind of problem, and my background was manual labor. On top of I've got dyslexia, learning disability, so my spelling is way too advanced for this civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have a good shot of getting approved my first time, or since I'm only going to be 48 in April, am I automatically going to get denied and have to go through the appeal process to prove because I'm not 50?
Well, first of all, I want to applaud you because you provided what, in my opinion, is some key information, like a bit about your conditions and one limitation and your age and your work. So I'm going to turn it over to the expert. And Jim,
I
did
need
you
you to
hear
give
all
me a
that?
summary. I didn't hear a lot of it, so can you give me a quick summary?
All that from
Yeah.
watching you guys for these last months.
What was that, Brandon?
I said I've learned all of that from watching you guys for these last months, so I really appreciate what content you put out there for us to see
Okay.
and help us that don't know how to do this.
Well, you're welcome. We're kind of figuring this out together. Some of us just been doing this a little longer. So I'm going to run this by Attorney Brown, give him the summary. So Brandon filed in October of last year. Multiple challenges with his back, spinal fusions, which is really the focal point. Was there some arthritis in there, Brandon?
Yeah, I've got degenerative arthritis in my knees and other things that I figured we're going to add later because I'm still going back and forth to the doctors with that.
Okay, some arthritis in the knees, so mobility issues, and really has a difficult time like walking 3 car lengths. Is 48 years old, will be in April, and has done manual labor. So the question from Brandon is like, what are my approval chances at the initial application? Am I going to end up going to a hearing?
When did Brandon last work?
Yeah, good. When did you last work, Brandon?
The last date I worked was, give me 1 second because I've got it right here. The last date I worked was 6/2 of 23, and I got a letter from my employer because they wouldn't work with my accommodations after my second lower back fusion.
Okay, so Jim, it was June 2nd of 2023. So that's when he stopped working, filed in October.
If somebody were to be making a decision this month, you're probably going to get denied. And that's because the people working for Social Security at the first level get evaluated on the quantity of the cases they handle, not the quality. And they can't be sure you're going to be off work 12 months. You're at the 7-month mark now. So they get graded down if they grant benefits and you go back to work before the 12 months are up. So they're always looking over their shoulder. Second biggest problem in your case is the one you can't do anything about, and that's your age. If you are over 50, you have a better chance than if you're under 50. The biggest issue is what's your doctor going to say? You've described several serious medical problems. Is your doctor going to support those? What restrictions is your doctor going to give you? You're telling us a lot of things you can and can't do.
Freeze.
Is the doctor going to say that? Is that in the doctor's records? Will the doctor fill out a form for Social Security supporting that? Or does your doctor say, I don't fill out forms? So those are some of the problems that you have. Right now, if I was betting, and I don't bet, I would say it's 2-1 against you getting benefits without having to file an appeal.
Okay, so 2-1. So am I looking at a 50% opportunity to get approved at the initial application? Is that another way to
No, a
translate that?
33% chance of getting approved.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So any advice, parting advice for Brandon, other than I heard you hit the doctors?
Okay,
Piece?
I would go online. I think on the Disability Digest website, he can get a medical source statement or residual functional capacity form, can't he? So I would get that for the orthopedic problems he has, bring it to the doctor, and ask the doctor to fill it out and then send it right into Social Security.
Mhm.
The other thing, there's a psychologist at Cleveland Clinic who's doing research now and finding that anybody who has to stop working because of a medical impairment is most likely to suffer from some depression and some anxiety. She said, if you're not suffering from that, she wonders what else is wrong with you. Here you were, from the time you woke up in the morning until the time you got home from work was about 10 hours. During that time, you were seeing other people. You often sat with somebody at lunch. You communicated with others throughout the day. And now you get to stay at home and think of how bad you feel all day.
Mm.
That's depressing. It's normal to be depressed.
Mhm.
But you have people at Social Security who are looking at you and saying, he's a 48-year-old man who says he has some aches and pains. How believable is that?
Mhm.
If a mental health therapist says everything Brandon says is credible, then Social Security isn't allowed to disbelieve your complaints of pain. So that just buttresses the case some more and really helps a lot. The other thing is, it sometimes helps that her study is showing that people in your situation who get 5 to 8 or 10 therapy sessions respond better to the medical treatment.
Interesting. Great advice. Did you get all that, Brandon?
Actually, no, I backed up the video, so I'm going to watch it because I could not hear what
Okay.
you were saying because I muted my stuff. But
Yep. Yep.
I heard you agreeing, and it sounded positive.
Yeah. So, I mean, just here's you didn't ask me, but my 2 cents is, if you cannot work, which sounds like you cannot work, otherwise you would be, you just got to stay in the fight, my friend.
Yeah. The other thing is 100% of the people who don't appeal never get benefits.
50-50
So if they turn
Yeah.
you down, don't give up.
age.
Yeah.
The only positive is I can't type. I can't do the office work. It's going to take me twice or 3 times as long as somebody without my spelling crutch, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to be efficient, and they're not going to, I don't got no family to say, oh, well, here you go, we'll help you out. I'm on my own, my wife's disabled, I'm just trying to keep a roof over our head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for calling in. When you get approved,
Thank you.
we'd love to hear from you. All right.
I will
Or if you need help along the way, of course, but you can get the RFC forms that Attorney Brown was mentioning. Maybe you're already a member, but it's in our disability approval course. And if you haven't found it and you're a member, just reach out to us. Okay.
I will. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Love you guys.
All right. Be well. Thanks. All right. So I'm just going to clear the phone lines and then we can take the next call. Okay, the phone line is open, 844-202-5609. Okay, get my technology down here. I'll take this call. Thanks for calling. This is Brian. Who am I speaking with?
This is Juliana.
Juliana, did I get that right?
I have a question.
We can hear you, but there's some noise in the background, Juliana.
Is that better?
Oh, much. It sounded like a hairdryer or a popcorn popper or something. I don't know. But that's much better. Yes, your question is.
My question is, it was mentioned that like when you have additional or new issues to report them to Social Security. Do you know how you would do that other than, your doctors documenting it and stuff? Like, how do you like tell them, hey, I've got new stuff?
Okay.
Like, I don't know how you do that.
Attorney Brown, did you hear that?
I didn't.
Okay, so the question from Juliana is, she's approved for disability. I'm just presuming that, right, Juliana? You're approved?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and would like to know as you develop, or if you developed new conditions, what is the proper way to report these to Social Security?
Don't. Wait until they contact you for a continuing disability review. One of their questions is, do you have any new conditions? And that's when you put them all in with the names of the doctors treating them. If you try to tell Social Security that now, you're going to confuse them. You're probably going to create a continuing review sooner. So let the checks keep coming. And when they send you the notice that they're reviewing you, give them all that additional information.
Did you hear that?
I didn't hear the response because I don't know. I can't hear it just on my phone, so I have to like watch it back on the video.
I'll give you the condensed version. Don't report it right now. Just keep the evidence, keep it well documented. Like load up your evidence file, and then when you get your continuing disability review, that's when you would report it. So just enjoy the benefits for now and keep really good records.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling in. All right, we are going to clear the phone lines for the next caller, 844-202-5609, extension 15. Ask Attorney Brown your question. While we're waiting for a caller, Jam, are there questions in chat that you would like to address?
A lot, but this one I would like to hear Attorney James Brown's
Okay.
answer because I get asked this question a lot. So oh gosh, I lost it. I'm sorry. Can you explain why we should hire a lawyer for SSDI?
That's an interesting question. First of all, if you're going to hire a lawyer, you should make sure you hire somebody who's experienced in Social Security. They just published a list of the 10 worst judges in the country. If you had any one of those, your chance. The worst judge in the country last year heard 267 cases and approved 10. Did those 10 people have lawyers? I heard they did, but I don't know for sure. But there's almost no help when you get a judge like that. On the other hand, a lawyer who knows what they're doing can help a lot in preparing your claim.
One moment, Jim. This is Brian Terrian. Would you just hold? We're going to finish a question and then we'll take yours. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, just hold one moment. We'll be right with you to take your question. Attorney Brown is finishing up answering
Thank you
another.
very much. Cool.
Okay, hang on. Continue, Jim.
Okay.
Sorry.
A lawyer who knows what they're doing will get all of the medical evidence, will get all of those residual functional capacity forms. Sometimes I'm talking to a client early in the case, and they are so depressed that I might suggest they ask their doctor to refer them to a therapist. Sometimes I can tell somebody, you just don't have the evidence. You need to start over, and here's what you need to do. But a lawyer who knows what they're doing can present your case properly. If you're denied, you're going to lose all of that time. You can refile and start over. If you get a lawyer who says you get the medical evidence, there's also non-attorney representatives who are certified to represent people on disability claims. But if you get somebody who tells you to get the evidence or doesn't talk to you about what's going to happen at the hearing, you could do it yourself. You don't need somebody who's going to make you do all the work. But a good attorney or a good representative is going to get the evidence. They're going to do their best to win the case on the initial application or the reconsideration. And if it has to go to a hearing, they're going to prepare you well for the hearing. I've never yet met a claimant who was qualified to cross-examine the vocational witness who testifies at Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
They're there testifying as to the work you've done in the past and what work you could do in the future. I had a vocational witness a few months ago who was giving all these jobs she said my client could do. And one by one, I had to get her to admit my client couldn't do them. And she finally just had a conniption with me and said, I have a PhD in vocational guidance. You should listen to my answers. And the judge said to her, Mr. Brown's been representing claimants longer than you've been alive. You should listen to his questions. And then the judge finally said, I'm ignoring all of this vocational testimony. It's not adequate, and approved the claim. A claimant in that hearing by themselves would have lost because they wouldn't have known how to pick apart those jobs the vocational witness said my client could do. And the judge would have had to accept that they were capable of doing that work. So you need somebody who understands the system, understands the law. And frankly, it's a different skill in Social Security. If you're in a courtroom in a real trial, you could cross-examine that person for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. In Social Security, you have to be able to do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So you have to be able to get right to the point and make it and move on, because the judges don't want to give you the amount of time you really need.
That's a good point. Yeah. And really, when it comes down to it, the average benefit package is like $447,000. And you may pay the maximum of $7,200 to get your benefits. You have to kind of weigh the cost benefit of rolling the dice. That's what I encourage people to look at. We have somebody on hold here, Jim. Thank you for your patience. Who am I speaking with?
Festus Hagen.
I'm sorry, your first name
Yeah,
is?
Muppet original. Festus.
With an F?
Gunsmoke. Yeah, you said use a fake
Festus.
name, right?
Wonderful. I think you're the first
All right.
Festus I've met. Yes, how can we help you? What's your question for Attorney Brown?
Okay. In 2022, I was working and I was having shortness of breath. I went to the emergency room, was admitted, and they found out that I had a clogged left artery in my heart. So they put a stent in and labeled me with congestive heart failure. My hospital workers didn't think I was going to make it out of the hospital. Yeah, I had 7% of my heart muscle working. And she said to me, I'm going to file disability for you. And when you get out of here, if you make it out of here, make sure you sign the paperwork and send it in. So I did that. And my case went, I'm in Florida. My case went to Coconut Creek, Florida. I'm in St. Petersburg. I dealt with that caseworker. And a day before, I got a call from her. She says, I don't have any of your medical records. You have to have it there by Friday. So me and my other half, she went down there and took an encyclopedia worth of paperwork, all my medical records by diagnosis, congestive heart failure, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, they took it in, and then they moved my case from Coconut Creek to St. Petersburg. I just called up, and I was just told that my case is on the queue in Tampa for medical review. And I said to the lady, how long's it been there? And she said 6 months. So it's like I'm in the cloud you guys were talking about in one of your videos, Social Security Cloud. So I'm just wondering I called up, I said to you, I've been put on multiple more prescriptions. I'm on statins and all kinds of good stuff. But should I be hearing an answer pretty soon? And my scale is at 90% for the last 4 months.
Okay.
That's at 90%.
So your case is in the cloud at medical review. You're at 90%. Should you be hearing something? Attorney Brown, did you hear Festus's breakdown? Okay, here we go. Here it comes.
Okay.
The first 2 levels of Social Security decisions are decided by the state. The federal government gives money to the states to set up a disability determination service that makes those first 2 decisions. it's up to the states then to allocate the money, to spend it properly, to process the claims. And it creates a huge variance in every state. In Ohio, an initial application from the time you file it until the time you get your first decision is 4 to 5 months. In Texas, from filing the first decision is 16 months. In Florida, you're talking close to a year. However it happens, it's because of the governor. The governor allocates the money. The governor appoints the people who allocate the money. They decide the priority. In Florida, where you are, it's not as important to the governor to get the disability cases moving as fast as they should. So when they tell you it's in the queue and it'll get reviewed when it gets reviewed, that's because they don't have enough people to do the reviews. What they're doing with the extra federal dollars that come in, I have never been able to figure out. But they're not spending it on processing the disability claims as fast as they can because the funds are allocated based on the population of the state. So every state has enough money. Some just manage it better than others. At this point, there's nothing you can do but wait for the decision.
You got to sit and wait, I guess, Festus. Yeah. Well, listen, I hope, were you able to hear Attorney Brown's message?
A little bit, yeah. But and the thing I forgot to tell you, it says I'm eligible, the credits
Yep.
on the Social Security page. I go on there every other day. I listen to you guys every day because I've got nothing else to do. And I went to what do you call it? The rehab to where you go on there and you go on the treadmill a little bit. And that was
Cardiac rehab.
But I'm trying to build up my heart muscle.
Okay.
So what am I looking at, another 6 months, a year? Because there's no pay.
Jim, what do you
When
think?
did you last work?
Was it 2022 when you went to the ER? Did you
Yeah.
work? That was your last day? Yeah. So what month was it?
It was April.
April of 2022.
Okay, so you've been off work 2 years almost.
Yeah.
So you should be getting a decision soon.
Yeah.
But what does being on the queue mean? She says you're on the queue. You're next in line. Is it?
That means they wanted to get you off the phone.
But I'm on the queue.
But you're, yeah. Yeah, that's code for go away. Yeah.
It means you're in line to be reviewed and I can't talk to you any longer. So you're in the queue and I have to get off the phone.
Monday and we pick another. She said, you're next in line.
Yeah.
You're on the queue.
Yeah.
And I figured Jim would know what that meant.
But
I'm just wondering, what are they waiting for me to? And I said to the girl, I want to be above ground when the decision's made.
Sure. Yeah. And my encouragement is just to be polite and persistent, and just do the best you can to do that. Is there anything else I can help you with that you need today?
But she was going to forward me, because I don't have a caseworker. I'm waiting to be assigned a caseworker at the medical review. Should I call and leave my prescriptions that I'm on? They give me a new prescription, and I got a pacemaker defibrillator put in my chest, all that good stuff. Keep me alive in case something. Should I do that, or should I wait for them to contact me?
I don't know, Jim. What do you think?
I'd wait for them to contact. Wait for them to contact you.
Yeah.
Will that push them?
No.
No. I think as I think through Jim's point, if you put more activity in the system, that could give them. It might slow it down, right? They just analyze the evidence that you have. Yeah.
I've got an encyclopedia of evidence.
That to me doesn't sound like the issue. It's just you are.
What does it seem like? What do you think's going on?
It's typical.
Denied. I've done it.
It's typical. The wait time that you're experiencing is unfortunately part of the process. It's 233 days. Florida and Texas are the longest states. In my take, Jim, let me know what your thoughts are. If your case wasn't pulled for review, then you'd be in a different situation. You'd probably have a favorable decision by now.
Right. Or an unfavorable.
Or an unfavorable.
my
I'm more
next question-
optimistic, I guess. Yeah.
The other thing,
well,
just to be a
my
little
case back to
optimistic,
Coconut Creek, because that's where I was
Just-
born and raised in Fort Lauderdale.
One
know
more,
why it's
hold your
there.
thought, Festus. Jim's got one more.
just to be a little
comment.
more optimistic, they are holding hearings in the House and Senate to try and find ways to get these cases moving faster. For the first time in probably 5 or 6 years, they've actually approved a new commissioner of Social Security. Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, is the new commissioner of Social Security. He's only been the commissioner for about a month, but he knows that that's a high priority of people in Congress to get claims moving faster.
So they need to solve the money problem. Festus, listen, we're pulling for you for a decision. We look forward to hearing back from you. Yeah, that everything has worked out fine. I hope you found
Are
this
we
helpful.
spinning the wheel today? No?
No, I don't have plans. We're just gonna take questions, but we will be spinning the wheel again soon. Yes, yes.
You guys have been very helpful with my thing, and you guys were part of the deal that set up the cloud and 90-day. I mean the whole thing. I'm right in there, and it says my case would be resolved in a year. It's been over a year.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So we
Well, good luck.
It moved from 10 months to 11 months.
Yeah.
But it's been back.
Listen,
what I'm
if
saying?
we
So
could
there's
press,
been some movement.
if we could press the button for you today, we would do it, but we wish you well.
All right.
All right?
Thank you very much.
You
for your
bet.
time, buddy.
Keep in
Have a good day.
touch. All right. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right, we got time for a couple more questions in respect of Attorney Brown's time. Jim, Philip, anything out there you want to address before we take another live call?
Yeah, I got one from the group. Pena says, is it normal for the law judge to only ask the vocational expert one hypothetical question? The judge asked, if I miss one day of probational period or miss one day a month or 11 days in a year, will the 3 jobs you listed will still be available? And the vocational expert said no. Then the hearing was over. Is this normal for just one question? I had no lawyer.
Uh-oh.
That's not normal, but you won. If what the judge was asking the vocational person was, if this person misses 11 days a year from work, can they do that job? And the vocational witness said no. At that point, the judge didn't ask any more questions, which meant that you were going to be approved. So the less questions the judge asks, usually the better it is.
Interesting. Okay. Good question. We have one more before we open the phone line up for another caller. Jam, Philip?
Go ahead, Jam.
Okay. How can a remanded claim get approved through a manual review?
A remanded claim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if a case is remanded, sometimes the person reviewing it on remand will look at it, say, this shouldn't have been denied in the past. I see the evidence that's appropriate here, and they'll put on a favorable decision. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen on occasion.
Jim, could you just give a basic explanation of what a remand is for the listeners out there?
A remand can happen at several stages. On occasion, a judge will say, this claim wasn't properly evaluated at the reconsideration level, and send it back for that. That doesn't happen often, but it happens occasionally. The other remands are you lose at a hearing, you appeal to the appeals council, or you appeal to federal court. The appeals council and federal court, less than 1% of the time, reverse the case. They usually remand it back to the judge for a new hearing.
One
If it's
moment, Jim.
remand-
This is Brian. I'm going to put you on hold for a minute and then we'll take your call. Okay, be right with you. Sorry, Jim, continue, please.
Okay. The first time it's remanded back, it goes to the same judge, which is terrible if you have that judge who paid 10 out of 260 some cases, because she just is going to find a different reason to turn you down. But if it gets remanded twice, it goes to a different judge. The remand just says, we're sending this back to you to conduct a new hearing because you didn't evaluate this medical evidence right. I have a remand hearing coming up in a couple weeks where the judge said, I referred to a residual functional capacity form in my pre-hearing brief that was never filed. On my appeal, I showed the receipt for when it was filed. They found it in the file on appeal and said the judge just never noticed it there, and sent it back and told him to have a new hearing, especially considering this evidence that he didn't see at the first hearing. Basically, that residual functional capacity form should make the case a winner with no hassles at all. But it still has to go through the process. The judge could have reviewed it, said I was wrong, and done it and issued a new decision, but then he doesn't get credit for a hearing, so we're going to have a hearing.
Thank you, Jim. I have Amy here on the line. Amy, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. What is your question for Attorney Brown today?
So I am in Pennsylvania.
All
I
right.
am awaiting my hearing. I had to appeal October 26th. I have back spine issues. I've had 3 back fusions, neck fusion. I have sleep disorder, anxiety disorder, bipolar, and I just had a radio function report done through my pain management doctor, and they had physical therapy. It was a 3-hour session, and they had done had put on there that I can do a non-sedentary job. I also had my psychiatrist fill out paperwork showing that I couldn't even work. I'd be off work at least 4 days a month. And I'm just wondering what you think as far as now that I have all of this finally under my belt.
How old are you?
Is this?
Yes. Did you hear Jim's question? How old are you?
No. I am 40. I'll be 49 in April.
Did you hear that, Jim?
Yeah. 49 in April for Social Security purposes is approaching advanced age. So do you have a lawyer?
Do you have a lawyer?
I have a lawyer currently, yes.
Yes, Jim has a lawyer.
Okay. If your lawyer understands Social Security, they should be able to put together the combination of physical and medical evidence to show that your physical restrictions combined with your mental impairments prevent you from doing work. One of the things I like to do when people are under age 50 is put in my pre-hearing memo that this person should be evaluated to determine if they're still disabled in 12 months. A lot of the judges for people who are younger, and I know you don't feel younger, but for Social Security purposes, you are, they think, how many years am I putting this person on disability for? If I put in my memo, evaluate them in 12 months, the judges think, oh, that's a good idea. Then I may not be putting them on forever. The judge put in their decision, evaluate them in 3 weeks.
Well,
nobody pays attention.
On your recording, so I can't hear anything, so I'll have to re-listen to you guys then. I guess that's why I can't understand.
So I will give you the condensed version, and then for sure you can listen to the replay.
Let me just finish that. So when I put that in, it's sometimes a light goes off in the judge that, okay, this person doesn't want disability, they want to get better, and they're more likely to pay it. If you follow the advice I gave on a different one of these sessions on how to avoid getting cut off, then you're prepared and they're not going to terminate you whenever that continuing disability review comes.
Mhm. So I'll hit the highlights, and Jim, fill in the blanks if I miss something. So your attorney or legal counsel, if they're experienced and have been done enough of this, should be able to connect the physical and the mental and prove that you're not able to work. And when you go to a hearing, Jim, what he does in his practice is he says approve the case, but review the case in 12 months. And so that's more passive or palatable, I guess you could say, Jim, right? For the judge to
Yes.
accept that. Yeah. And then, if you can't work, you can't work. And actually, in your situation, in 12 months, you would be over 50. So if my math is correct, you're 49 now. I had to be right on that one. Then you should be in pretty solid shape. So I hope you find that helpful, but definitely listen to the full
Okay.
full explanation, and we're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna
I
be
haven't
be pulling for you.
so.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Amy.
Bye.
Okay, Jam, are there any last pressing questions you want to take or Philip before we wrap up with Attorney Brown here today?
I'm looking for the best one. Okay, here's one addressed for Attorney James. Is it reasonable for a doctor to insist on physical therapy after 9 years post-stroke on left side and no improvement after 4 rounds of physical therapy in the first 5 years? Asking for a future CDR.
That's a medical question. And I recently gave a talk at the stroke support group in Ohio. And there's a lot of things. You should ask the doctor, why do you think I should keep going to therapy? Maybe they've seen something that they think can improve with some therapy. But I would ask the doctor why.
Okay. Good. Philip, in your group, any closing questions for Attorney Brown today?
No closing
None.
questions.
All right.
Pena
Well, good.
just the guy that asked the question earlier about the law judge, he just responded and said, thank you guys is what he's saying and don't stop helping others.
Well, that's nice. We appreciate
Can
that.
I add one thing, Brian?
I'm going to go with yes on that. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
But that was my question. 30% of the eligible people never sign up for Social Security. That's a statistic from the Government Accounting Office. There's nothing fraudulent in signing up. If you think you can't work because of a physical or mental impairment, you should sign up.
Mhm.
And if you know somebody who can't work, tell them. The people don't sign up either because they don't know about Social Security disability or because somebody said, oh, I know someone who was denied, so you probably can't get it either. That someone is often a physician who said, I had a patient worse than you who was denied. And the physician never looks in a mirror and says, maybe I did something wrong. So if you think you can't work, you should sign up. The other big statistic is 60% of the people with mental illnesses and impairment who are eligible never get it. And it's either because they can't sign up because the application is so difficult or because their case was poorly presented. It's pathetic that that number is so high. But if you can't work because of a mental impairment and you can't get through that application, get help. You're eligible, you paid for this benefit, and you're entitled to receive it.
Mm. That's great advice. I feel that we, likely all of us doing this work here, devastating stories of people that wait too long or don't take any action. And it's expensive to wait. Even if you wait over a year, I mean, you're putting there's just many reasons why you shouldn't do that. But thank you for sharing that. That's very valuable information.
In that expense to wait, I just won a case for someone who stopped working in 2019, but didn't apply until 22. So they went back to 21 paying, but he lost 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
So that probably cost him $30,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll give you one from just yesterday. And actually, this is somebody that we're working with here. She had called Social Security to apply, and this was 2 years ago. And the intake lady on the phone told her that she didn't qualify because she had made too much money, and had too many assets. And her response was, "But I've worked." So she was screened just for SSI, and she was turned away. So, and then a year later, she comes here. So she's been in a similar situation, total out of work 2 years. But that conversation with Social Security cost her 12 months of benefits. It's ridiculous. So
something that you might be able to do, if she can prove she called Social Security, then you might be able to call her U.S. representative when you get benefits. Say, this is when she tried, Social Security gave her bad advice. And on rare occasions, they'll go back and use that as a date of application.
So phone record, something like that?
A phone record, it doesn't say what she said, but it'll show she called. And sometimes that's enough to get them to use that as a date of application. You have to be creative to get something like that through. But once you win benefits, it's worth a try.
Yeah, yeah. One more thing now that you asked me that I have for you, it's kind of on the entertainment spectrum before we go. When we were getting ready to start the show today, you shared with us what I find just astonishing, which is the number one area of fraud with Social Security. Would you share that before we wrap up today?
Sure. Before I do, I'm going to pause for about 3 seconds. I want everybody to think of what they think the biggest fraud in Social Security is.
Okay.
Okay, time's up. First of all, the fraud rate in Social Security disability is under 1%. So there's not much fraud in Social Security. But the biggest fraud is people who read an obituary page, see that somebody died without a spouse. They can get phony marriage certificates made and then apply for disability as the widow or widower of someone and get their benefit based on that other person's earnings. And Social Security knows it's happening, but the cost of investigating every widow or widower application far exceeds the cost of paying the claims, so they just pay them. Isn't that amazing that it's something probably nobody listening to this would ever have thought of?
No. And I just want to clarify one thing. For those of you out there looking for a side hustle, this is not an endorsement from Jim to do this as a
Not
practice.
At all. That's just factual, not recommendations.
Yes. Last thing we want is, well, Attorney Brown said it was all right to do this. No. So listen, Jam, Philip, thank you for your contribution today. Attorney Brown, as always, I learned something every time I hang out with you. I appreciate you coming here today and helping and supporting our members that are out there. And so for those of you listening, if you are in need of more information, looking for more information to help you keep or maximize your disability benefits, stay tuned into what we're doing. We encourage you to join us as a member if you haven't already. There's no charge for that. And that's the way we can best help you. We can get you into some of the specific information that you need. Like some of you have CDR questions, and Attorney Brown has helped us put together a 10-part how to survive your CDR exam. So if you come
That's
in and
continuing disability review.
yes. So if you know if we know that's what you're looking for, you can certainly search our channel, but you won't